Welcome to the deep dive. If you ask any serious practitioner of Western ceremonial magic or esoteric magic, what the absolute core goal is, the thing their life's work hinges on, chances are they'll quote Aleister Crowley, the attainment of the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel.
That exact phrase. KNC, they often call it.
Right, KNC. And it's not just some, lofty mystical idea. According to the most dedicated people in these traditions, it's the central mission, it's the prerequisite, apparently, that makes everything else possible.
It really is framed that way, the prerequisite for all meaningful work that follows, which, when you think about it, is a massive claim.
It is.
And you see that gravity, that importance, echoed across centuries. Think about Abraham von Worms, who wrote the foundational text for this whole quest, really.
A book of Abramelin.
Exactly. He describes actually meeting the angel. He says it appears in unequaled beauty and talks with such affection and goodness, such sweetness, he claims no human tongue could possibly express it.
Wow.
So yeah, it's unanimously seen as the primary goal. The thing you must achieve before any other serious magical work can even be, well, properly accomplished. The HGA, this holy guardian angel, becomes the magician's teacher, sometimes lover, mentor, guide, especially through the higher, trickier levels of initiation.
Okay, let's try and unpack this, because it sounds monumental, but also notoriously confusing.
Definitely confusing.
We've really plunged into a wide range of sources for this. We've got perspectives from Grimoire mages, the ones working strictly from ancient texts.
Right, the traditionalists.
Then seasoned Golden Dawn initiates, Thelemites following Crowley's system, and even, I found this fascinating, participants in a really lively blogosphere debate back in 2011. They were trying to sort out exactly who is talking to what.
And that's where the confusion, but maybe also the clarity, starts. Because you have this huge cross-section of beliefs. What the HGA is, its function, its essence, it's just so diverse. No single magician seems able to write the definitive guide that satisfies anyone else.
Yeah. So our mission today, for you listening, is to try and extract the critical insights from all this. What is this angel or entity? How do people actually achieve that vital KNC, that contact? Which often sounds like a real ordeal.
It often is.
And maybe most practically, what does life actually look like after you make contact? We need to navigate all these different, sometimes conflicting views.
Okay, so what's really striking is, despite all the disagreements about what the HGA is inside you, outside you, something else entirely. The central, foundational importance of getting that knowledge and conversation, I can't see, it's absolutely undisputed. Everyone agrees on that.
That's the common ground.
That's the common ground.
Right.
Crowley called it the great work. And in that high mystical language, he directly equated it to the ultimate goal of pretty much all spiritual paths, union with God. It's foundational because it's seen as aligning the individual, the microcosm, with the bigger picture, the macrocosm.
Right. And yet, the moment you try to pin down what that union actually means or what the angel is, poof, consensus gone.
Completely evaporates. Yeah. Jason Miller, who's a very respected practical magician today, he points this out really clearly. Everyone agrees the HGA is crucial, but nobody can define it in a way that satisfies anyone else.
So if you push people, what happens? Do they fall into camps?
Pretty much two main camps. Is it a separate celestial being, an individual intelligence, maybe assigned at birth, or is it an aspect of the self, maybe a projection of your own higher self, your true will, as some call it, internal versus external?
That's the big debate, internal, external.
That's the dualistic problem, yeah. And it confounds people, it stalls progress. But what's interesting is the sources suggest this whole debate might be, well, fundamentally flawed.
How so?
There's an account from one experienced practitioner. They were apparently told by the angel itself that this question, internal or external, was actually the wrong question.
The wrong question. So what was the right one?
They were told to turn their focus back inward, to ask about the nature of the self.
Ah, okay. That shifts things immediately, doesn't it? From trying to classify the angel to understanding your own nature.
Exactly. It moves away from ontology, from definitions, towards experiential truth. And this leads to a way of understanding it that kind of transcends that dualistic argument. It provides a really useful model, I think.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the model?
It's an analogy, and it's quite memorable. Imagine your ego, your current everyday self, as a specific hand gesture, let's say. A tightly clenched fist, limited, defined, maybe a bit tense.
Okay, got it. The fist is the ego.
Right. Now imagine the angel as a different, maybe perfected hand gesture, perhaps an open hand, reaching out, or a thumbs up, signifying potential, alignment, success.
All right. Fist versus thumbs up. Ego versus angel. So where's the truth? Is it the fist or the thumbs up?
The truth lies in the hand itself.
The hand.
The hand. The key insight is that neither the fist nor the thumbs up is permanent. They're both temporary states, temporary manifestations, functional expressions of an underlying non-separate stream of consciousness. The hand.
So the hand is the fundamental consciousness, the reality underneath.
That's the idea. The hand is the continuous reality. Both the ego, the fist, and the angel, the thumbs up, are just expressions of that same underlying truth. And that truth ultimately isn't separate from anything else, not separate from the cosmos.
Ah, I see. So the question isn't, is the angel internal or external? Because the hand is both and neither. The HGA guides us towards God or cosmic alignment by helping us realize that thumbs up potential within the hand. Whether we perceive that guidance as coming from inside or outside becomes almost irrelevant at that level.
Kind of, yeah, because at the highest level, there's no separation. The goal isn't really to define the angel in a neat little box. The goal is to become aligned with the angel's will, which is ultimately your own true will, aligned with the cosmos.
So it's about integration, not just summoning something.
Exactly. All that really matters, operationally, is that the magician's spiritual development is massively aided, maybe even mandated by making conscious contact with this principle, this entity, this potential. It's a process of becoming.
Okay, so this whole concept, a personal divine guardian, it didn't just pop up in medieval grimoires or with Crowley, did it? It feels older.
Much older. It has really ancient, powerful roots. You can trace the core idea back thousands of years, especially in the Greek magical papyri, the PGM.
Oh, the PGM, full of fascinating stuff.
Isn't it just? And one of the key things there is a method for acquiring what they called an assistant daemon.
An assistant daemon, so like a helper spirit.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
And this concept, this personal divine helper, it's deeply embedded in the Hellenic world, long before Christianity came along. In fact, the very first magical rite presented in the PGM collection is for acquiring this assistant daemon. That tells you how foundational it was considered.
The first one, okay, that says a lot about its importance. And the ritual itself, I remember reading about it, it's pretty intense, isn't it? Very graphic.
Oh, it's unforgettable. And deeply rooted in sympathetic magic, the idea of like affects like. It involves the magician basically deifying a falcon.
Why a falcon?
The falcon is a powerful solar symbol. Think of Horus in Egypt. It represents the sun at its absolute peak strength.
Okay, so they take this falcon.
And they ritually drown it.
Yeah.
Usually in the milk of a black cow mixed with honey. Then, to create that sympathetic link, they add something of themselves, a couple of fingernails, a lock of hair, into the mixture.
Wow, okay.
Then the falcon's body is mummified, dressed, prepared, and the magician drinks that milk and honey mixture just before sunrise, aiming to feel this divine presence literally take root inside their heart.
Drinking the essence.
Exactly. And finally, the now consecrated falcon statue is crowned and placed in a special shrine, usually made of juniper wood, with ongoing offerings. So you create this intensely personal divine guardian. It's linked to your physical essence through the hair and nails, but it remains separate and divine in its function.
That solar symbolism you mentioned, the falcon as the sun at noon, that seems really key.
Absolutely key. It plugs right into the ancient understanding of the solar cycle. The sun is seen as a child at dawn, this triumphant falcon at noon, and then an old man fading in the evening. It's a cosmic blueprint.
But it's not just about astronomy, is it? It's a spiritual formula.
Precisely. This is where that core Hermetic axiom comes in. As above, so below. We as humans are the microcosm, the little reflection of the macrocosm, the universe. The ancient myths aren't just stories to explain why the sun moves. They're spiritual allegories, reflecting corresponding parts and processes within the human soul. The visible world reveals the invisible path of spiritual growth.
So the PGM falcon ritual, it's not really about getting an external bird spirit helper. It's about kindling a process inside the magician that mirrors the sun reaching its absolute maximum strength.
You've got it. That's the core idea. It flows directly from thinkers like Proclus, commenting on the Chaldean oracles. They talk about a divine spark of solar light and fire that exists within us. Dormant, perhaps, but it must be kindled. When that happens, the soul itself is made to shine with fire.
Like the sun itself.
Just like the PGM description of the sun god. Young in the morning and old in the evening, who journey through the subterranean sphere and rise, breathing fire. That's the journey of the soul's deification. That's the underlying path to the HGA.
But achieving that, igniting that inner fire, that requires serious internal work, doesn't it? It's not just performing one ritual.
Oh, absolutely not. It demands total transformation.
Yeah.
The universal prerequisite before you even think about seeking contact is purification.
Purification. What does that actually mean in this context? Is it about being morally perfect?
Less about conventional morality, more about internal refinement. It's seen as an alchemical operation, the burning away of the dross. Think of it like a deep psychotherapeutic process. You have to remove all the mental and emotional obscurations, the baggage, the noise, the ego clutter that blinds you from even perceiving your angel.
So it's about clearing the internal mirror.
Perfectly put. And this connects directly to that ancient Hellenic and Gnostic dualism we touched on earlier.
Yeah.
The idea that the lower nature, often associated with the body, the passions, the flesh, is somehow contrary to the divine spirit. There's a tension there.
You see that in the old grimoires too, right?
Clearly. There's a fantastic illustration in a British Library manuscript, Sloane MS 3825. It shows man lying in the middle, supposedly safe, in the hand of his own counsel.
Yeah.
But he's physically positioned between a good spirit, his protector, and an evil spirit who rules the desires of the flesh.
So he's caught in the middle.
Exactly. And the implication is that man holds the power, through his own will and purification, to choose which spirit wins out. But the struggle is constant. It's inherent in being human in this dualistic view.
That image, the struggle, the divided soul, it makes me think of other traditions. How does this relate to, say, Sufism, the quest for the beloved, that often frames the struggle in terms of love and separation?
That's a beautiful and really necessary connection to make. In Sufism, the quest for God, the beloved, is often described as this insatiable yearning of the material toward the spiritual. That same struggle we saw in the Sloane manuscript, spirit versus flesh, is reframed. It becomes this intense, aching sense of separation from the divine source and a longing to return.
Like Rumi's poems.
Exactly like Rumi. Think of the mystic Risbihan Bakli. His journey culminates in what he called the test of the veil. The ultimate realization wasn't just witnessing God, but understanding that the mystic is the mirror through which God contemplates God's own self.
Wow. That flips the whole dualism, doesn't it? It's not about separating good from bad anymore. It's realizing the separation itself was the illusion. The one contemplating becomes the contemplated.
Precisely. That resolution of duality is a massive step on the path towards the HGA. And you see echoes of this in the West, too, in traditions like the Ogdoadic tradition, through figures like Marsilio Ficino in the Renaissance.
Ficino, the Neoplatonist.
Right. He defined the spiritual quest as the transmutation of matter, which is perceived as ugly, the lower self into spirit, which is beauty, and the agent of that transformation, love. This process leads directly to the descent of the nous, the intuitive mind, which is essentially the nature of the angel descending into the prepared vessel.
And this idea, the initiate identifying with this other who is not other, it pops up in texts like the Picatrix too, right?
Yeah.
Where Hermes encounters his perfect nature, this guide of light.
Yes, exactly. It reinforces the idea that the encounter isn't with some random external spirit. It's with the necessary, purified, perfected version of the self. So in a way, we're back to that hand theology again. It's not just meeting some separate entity. It's recognizing that the thumbs-up version of yourself, your true essential nature, that is the indispensable truth. That's the perfect nature Hermes encountered.
So the groundwork for KNC, it's laid by purifying the self until that perfect nature is basically the only thing left to greet you.
An eloquent summary. That's the internal alchemy required.
Okay, so we have this ancient, profound, divine concept, the HGA, the perfect nature. But let's fast forward to the modern era. You mentioned that 2011 blogosphere debate that helped inspire the anthology we're drawing on. Apparently there was huge confusion back then.
Massive confusion. Still is, often.
People were mixing up the HGA, the traditional concept of the genius, and something Mike Cecchetelli calls the supernatural assistant, or SA. And getting these distinctions right seems absolutely crucial if you don't want to fool yourself.
It's critical. You have to clarify these terms, or you risk ending up talking to something entirely different from what you intended. So let's break it down. The genius, traditionally, often refers to a spirit assigned at your birth, linked to your astrological makeup. It's more like an innate guiding principle tied to your fate and personality.
Okay, so the genius is sort of built in.
In a sense, yeah. But the supernatural assistant, SA, and the holy guardian angel, HGA, are generally understood as distinct entities you encounter through specific magical or spiritual practices. They aren't necessarily there from birth in the same way.
Let's focus on that HEA versus SA distinction then. Because Cecchetelli, who actually works with the SA based on the PGM methods, draws some really clear operational differences.
He does, and they're fundamental. First off, origin. The SA is not assigned at birth. It's chosen for you by an overseeing divine entity, a god or daemon, at the very moment you successfully make contact through the ritual.
Chosen for you. Based on what?
Based entirely on you, your individual strengths, and crucially, your weaknesses. The essay is specifically selected to be the yin to your yang. It's meant to balance out your weaknesses with its strengths, specifically to help you achieve your goals, often material ones.
Okay, so it's like a custom-picked spiritual tool designed to compensate for your flaws.
That's a good way to put it. And this leads to a very practical, almost utilitarian relationship. The essay serves the magician's will directly. If you tell the essay your goal is, frankly, pretty earthly, maybe even ethically dubious, like harming a business rival or getting rich no matter what.
What does the essay do? Does it judge you?
Nope. According to Cecchetelli, the essay just says, okay. It doesn't weigh the moral implications. It doesn't care if your plan might land you in jail. Its entire function is to help you get where you want to go, using its unique knowledge and power. It works on both celestial and terrestrial levels.
Terrestrial meaning worldly stuff, like getting a fancy car.
Exactly. Cecchetelli gives that specific example. If you want, say, a BMW, the essay won't just magically make cash appear. It operates more cleverly. It might suddenly realize that your dusty old baseball card collection, sitting ignored in the attic for 20 years, is actually worth enough to buy that car easily.
Ah, so it thinks outside the human box, uses its different perspective.
Precisely. It connects dots we wouldn't see. It uses its objective viewpoint to achieve your stated goals, balancing your blind spots with its insight. It's a highly effective, non-judgmental power tool.
Okay, wait a minute, though. If the essay can help you get rich, deal with rivals, and basically serves your will without all the moral hand-wringing, why on earth would anyone bother with the HGA? Especially if contacting the HGA involves that grueling, ego-shattering, potentially 18-month Abramelin process. Doesn't the essay sound easier, more practical?
That is the absolute core question this distinction raises. Why go through the HGA ordeal if a helpful essay is available? And the answer lies entirely in the nature and purpose of the two. You have to contrast them starkly.
Okay, so contrast them for us. What's the HGA like compared to this essay?
The HGA is purely, utterly, indisputably divine, celestial. The experience of encountering it, according to those who claim it, is visceral, overwhelming. It's described like standing miles too close to the sun. There's this magnitude of light, power, presence that's palpable, almost unbearable to the magician.
Yeah.
But someone standing right next to them might not see or feel a thing. It's that level of divine intensity.
Wow. Okay, so radically different feel. What about function?
And here's the critical difference. The HGA is absolutely not at your service. It's not your genie in a bottle.
So what is its function then?
Its sole concern, its only agenda, is your spiritual development, your ascent, your alignment with what practitioners call the will of the source or the will of the cosmos, your true will.
So back to the BMW example. If you ask the HGA for a BMW...
The HGA probably won't even register the request, unless that BMW is somehow essential for your spiritual path, which seems unlikely. If the desire for the car is just ego gratification, something pulling you out of alignment with your true will, the HGA will likely remain silent. Or worse, it might actively guide you away from it, perhaps in ways that feel like obstacles or hardships initially.
So it won't interfere with free will, but its guidance is only ever towards spiritual growth, even if that's uncomfortable.
Exactly. It only provides guidance if you ask for it, sincerely. And the guidance is rarely about making your current life easier or more comfortable. It's about transformation. Material things are beneath its concern, unless
the lack of them is actively preventing spiritual work.
That's the caveat. For instance, if you're stuck in a dead-end job working 80 hours a week and have no time or energy for meditation or study, the HGA might assist in finding a better job. Not for the sake of wealth itself, but purely to free up the necessary time and resources for you to do your great work.
Okay, that distinction is crystal clear now. Essay, personal power, your goals, operates on your terms. HGA yields cosmic alignment, spiritual transformation, operates on divine terms, often challenging your ego.
You got it. The HGA's job is to challenge you, to call you on your nonsense, as one writer put it. It's an accelerator of spiritual evolution, not an errand boy.
This whole idea needing different types of spirits for different tasks, it brings us back to that idea of multiple guides. Conjureman Ali talks about this, saying it aligns better with Near Eastern traditions and African diasporic traditions, APRs.
It does. In many of those traditions, a successful practitioner is expected to work with a whole team of spirits, each with different specialties. From this perspective, the HGA might be seen as one specific, very high-level entity. Maybe the receptacle for the divine power humans forgot or lost during their descent into matter, as some esoteric theories go. The HGA holds that power in trust until the magician is purified and ready to reclaim and integrate it.
And maybe those results often mentioned in old grimoires, the treasure finding, the protection spells, influencing rulers, maybe those weren't typically done by the HGA itself.
That's a strong possibility suggested by several modern practitioners. That kind of tangible, worldly success might be more commonly achieved by working with other types of spirits, perhaps sublunar spirits, elementals, or even chthonic underworld entities who specialize in material matters. The HGA is focused on cosmic celestial concerns. You might need the HGA for enlightenment, but you might need a different spirit, frankly, to help pay the rent.
So the crucial takeaway here, for anyone listening and considering this path, is know what you're asking for. If you want comfort, power, material gain, maybe an SA is what you're looking for, or another type of spirit.
Yeah.
But if you're seeking total, undeniable, ego-dismantling spiritual truth that will fundamentally realign your destiny, then the arduous path to the HGA is the one you must tread.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Be careful what you wish for and be clear about who you're asking.
Okay, let's get practical then. If K&C is so foundational, when should a magician actually attempt it? I think most beginners assume it's like the final exam, the thing you do after years and years of study and practice.
A common assumption, yeah. The capstone project.
But Jason Miller argues completely against that. He insists K&C should be attempted right at the start of a magical career. It's not advanced work. He says if it was the very first magical thing you ever did, that would be perfectly fine, even ideal.
That just flips the whole paradigm, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It stops being this far-off graduation ceremony and becomes the essential instruction manual you get on day one, the primary spiritual alignment you need before you start messing with anything else.
Exactly. But okay, how do you actually approach it? There seems to be this huge historical confusion around timelines, mostly thanks to the most famous method, the Abramelin operation.
Yes, the Abramelin timeline saga.
Yeah.
It's caused a lot of grief.
Because for over a century, the English-speaking world mostly had Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mather's translation right, which came from a corrupted French manuscript.
Correct. And that version prescribed a very rigid 6-month operation. 6 months of intense purification, prayer, and withdrawal.
Which set this benchmark, 6 months, boom, meet your angel.
Exactly. But then, much later, when scholars got hold of the earlier, more reliable German sources, they discovered the operation was actually meant to be 18 months long.
18. 3 times longer.
18 months, broken down into 3 distinct 6-month phases: purification, preparation, and then finally reception. That changes everything.
How did that error affect things?
It created this massive psychological trap. People would follow the Mathers version, hit the 6-month mark, the angel wouldn't appear in shining glory, and they'd think, I failed. They'd quit maybe just days or weeks before a breakthrough might have happened on the true, longer timeline. It set people up for failure and disappointment.
So what's the solution? Just aim for 18 months instead.
Some do, but many modern practitioners, Miller included, suggest something more radical. Throw out the fixed timeline entirely.
Just ignore the clock.
Pretty much. Because of Parkinson's law, the old business adage.
Work expands to fill the time available for its completion.
Exactly. If you rigidly box the K&C operation into 6 months or even 18 months, the work, the internal struggle, the purification, the waiting will simply expand to fill precisely that time. The focus shifts from genuine readiness to just hitting a deadline. The answer isn't a specific number of months, but allowing sufficient time, whatever that means for the individual.
So the actual method, whether it's the long Abramelin ordeal or maybe faster, more focused methods like Crowley's Liber Samic, which is a kind of stylized, solar-focused invocation, the specific ritual isn't the most important thing.
It seems secondary, yes. What's primary, according to many sources, are 2 core underlying principles, regardless of the specific ritual structure you use.
Okay, what are they?
Principle 1, systematically lower the volume on your outer life, the distractions, the noise, the mundane demands, while dramatically raising the volume on your inner life. Deep, sustained introspection and quiet.
Turning inward. Makes sense.
What's 2?
Principle 2, maintain a constant, unwavering devotional focus on contacting the angel. This isn't just about doing the scheduled rituals. It's about keeping that channel open constantly. Spontaneous prayer throughout the day, dedicating actions to the goal, keeping the angel constantly in mind.
So quiet the outside, amplify the inside, and stay focused.
That's the core. But Miller adds a crucial third principle, which I think is particularly relevant for our noisy modern lives.
The necessity of profound silence. Or, as he bluntly puts it sometimes, You just have to shut the hell up for a while.
Haha. Okay, tell me more.
His point is, if you're constantly petitioning, invoking, reading sacred texts, performing complex rituals, you're always talking at the angel. You might not be leaving any quiet space for the angel to actually answer. It's like having a phone conversation where you never stop talking long enough to hear the other person.
That's a really powerful metaphor. We fill every moment with noise, internal or external.
We do. So cultivating silence is key. Allowing the sand in the glass, all the mental chatter, the anxieties, the plans, to just settle down. So the water, the consciousness underneath, can become clear. And interestingly, this deep receptiveness often isn't achieved through strenuous single-pointed meditation, which can lead to fatigue and frustration.
So where does it happen?
Often it happens during periods of open, non-striving receptiveness. Sometimes during simple, mindless, repetitive tasks, mowing the lawn, washing dishes. A friend of Miller's apparently coined the term excre meditation.
Excre meditation, seriously.
Seriously. The idea being, those moments of enforced quiet and privacy can actually be conducive to breakthrough insights, precisely because you're not actively trying to have one. The mind relaxes its grip.
That's brilliant, actually. So the most profound spiritual contact might happen. Well, not necessarily on the silk-draped altar.
Exactly. It's about creating pockets of silence in daily life, driving without the radio or podcasts on, leaving the phone at home when you go for a walk, taking the equivalent of smoker's breaks, just stepping outside for 5 minutes to sit quietly, without judging your thoughts, just allowing space, giving the angel a chance to whisper, rather than needing it to shout over the noise.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, shifting back to the more formalized approach, Aaron Leitch offers this really powerful reinterpretation of the whole Ebermelin process. He doesn't see it as just summoning the angel.
No, he frames it as a crowning ceremony.
A crowning ceremony. What does that imply?
It implies the angel isn't something you drag down from heaven. Leitch argues the angel is always there, in perpetual attendance around you. The intense purification of the Ebermelin rite simply fulfills the requirements, laid out by magicians like Agrippa centuries ago, necessary for the magician to finally perceive the angel consciously, to remove the veils.
So the ritual cleans the mirror so you can finally see what's always been reflected.
That's the idea. And this leads to the incredibly potent symbolism of the final day of the operation. The aspirant literally enacts their own death and resurrection.
How?
They wear sackcloth, cover themselves in ashes, lie down in the oratories if dead, performing their own funeral rites. Then, after this symbolic death, they rise, cleanse themselves, and enter the purified oratory dressed in a clean white robe.
Like the transfiguration of Jesus or resurrection.
Exactly. It signifies that the old self, the ego, has died, and the adeptus have been reborn, crowned by the angel. It implies a permanent possession, a spiritual marriage where the two adept and angel become effectively one integrated being.
That sounds incredibly transformative. And you mentioned earlier there are parallels in other traditions.
Strong parallels. Leitch compares it directly to ceremonies like the Ocha initiation in Santeria, an Afro-Caribbean tradition. In Ocha, the initiates ruling Orisha, their personal divine force is ritually put to your head, seated in their consciousness, the highest point. This creates a permanent bond, a kind of possession or divine marriage.
Yep.
It fundamentally changes the person's spiritual makeup forever.
There's a potential pitfall here, isn't there? People go through this intense 18-month process, enact this death and resurrection. They expect fireworks on the big day.
Huge expectations, yeah. Thunder, lightning, angelic choirs. And when that doesn't happen immediately, when it's maybe quiet, subtle, profound disappointment can set in.
So what's really happening?
Leitch points out that just like in Ocha, where the newly initiated person and their Orisha are considered newborns who need time to grow together, the same often applies after K&C. The adept and the angel might need a period of quiet integration, of learning to walk together before the full power manifests. This post-ceremony quiet often precedes a later awakening of great power. It's like the tarot card judgment, signifying rebirth, yes, but also a reckoning and integration that takes time.
Okay, so patience is needed even after the ceremony. Now, let's talk about the most extreme approach to K&C, the ordeal. Frater Ashen Chassan argues that for some, maybe even many, simple ritual and meditation just aren't enough.
Not enough to break the ego's grip.
Right. He argues true union requires a complete breakdown of the ego, forced through extreme self-challenge. He compares it to a shamanic vision quest.
This is the absolute antithesis of comfortable armchair magic. Chassan describes the process often starting with a sudden, involuntary stripping away of comforts, distractions, and habits previously held dear.
Involuntary. So life just falls apart.
It can feel that way. Your job disappears, relationships end, your usual coping mechanisms fail. It can be self-initiated by deliberately undertaking an ordeal, or it can feel like fate, or maybe even the HGA itself just pulls the rug out from under you. It's described as a very trying, terrifying time because all your deep unconscious fears get dragged to the surface as the ego's defenses are violently torn down. That sounds psychologically dangerous. High risk of trauma. The risk is absolutely real. It's not a path to be undertaken lightly. But the goal, from this perspective, is the complete dissolution of the conventional idea of self. Pushing yourself until all the usual questions, concerns, wants, needs, they just fall away into this complete void of irrelevance.
How do you achieve that?
Often, it involves deliberately removing yourself from what Chassan calls the Western comfort mentality, getting out of controlled environments and stepping into the uncontrolled the wilderness, facing unpredictable weather, wild animals, isolation, physical hardship, testing your resolve, your courage, your faith in a raw, immediate way that no indoor ritual can replicate.
It's about facing the raw, unfiltered reality of existence, light and shadow.
Exactly. The sources stress that the true magician, in this view, is one who dares to walk that nebulous path, embracing both the light and the shadow, understanding the lessons in both. You have to immerse yourself in both, unfiltered.
Chassan shares a really intense personal story that illustrates this perfectly. A ritual he did called the Night Run when he was just a teenager on Samhain night.
Yes, it's a powerful account.
After days of preparation, he starts this run through the woods at night, having ritually summoned what he calls the Lord of the Hunt, basically this shadowy, fear-inducing challenger to push him. And he says he was immediately consumed by genuine, primal terror, feeling like a million non-human eyes were watching him.
That level of raw, paralyzing fear and total isolation, that's precisely the kind of pressure cooker needed in this model to force the ego to crack. To dissolve those mental constructs that keep us feeling safe and separate.
He describes running through these dark, menacing forest trails, whispering prayers, feeling utterly weak and vulnerable. And then the climax. He's in this narrow, dark, tunnel-like trail, and this thing steps out right in front of him.
Or is it?
He describes it as massive, non-human, just a shadowy figure, all black, standing on two legs, huge arms, head melding right into its body, just terrifying otherness.
And what did he do?
He froze, utterly paralyzed by fear. Eventually, he just closed his eyes and in some primal surge ran at it headlong into the darkness. He says the figure just effortlessly sidestepped him, but the terror was absolute, overwhelming.
That kind of encounter, facing something so far outside rational comprehension, that's designed to force a break, a shatter point for the ego.
And it did shatter him. He kept running until he got completely lost. He describes being trapped in this small patch of woods where the trees seemed to be shifting, forming a box around him. He couldn't escape. He felt bewildered, trapped, his brain just overloaded. And then he reached his breaking point. He says, I threw up my hands and sat down. I just rolled like a toddler. He completely gave up trying to control the situation, gave up the fight.
That's incredible, that image, throwing up his hands, rolling like a toddler. It suggests the breakthrough, the magic, only happened when the intellect, the striving ego, was completely exhausted and defeated. That's a huge lesson right there. Maybe the real magic starts when the fighting stops and the surrender is total.
Absolutely. That physical and mental exhaustion, that complete surrender and abandonment of all expectation, that's what led to the breakthrough. When he finally stopped fighting and just opened his eyes, the reservoir he'd been trying to reach was suddenly clearly visible right in front of him. The ordeal resolved itself only after he broke down. The paradox became clear. Utter self-dissemination, abandoning all expectation, must be accepted before the HGA or the inner truth can reveal itself.
A powerful testament to the ordeal path. Not for everyone, clearly, but perhaps necessary for some. Okay, so let's say someone goes through Abramelin or Liber Samic, or even a harrowing ordeal like Chassan's Night Run. They feel they've made contact, the tears have dried, the white robes are back in the closet. How do you actually know if you contacted the real deal, the HGA? How do you know you weren't just talking to a lesser spirit? Or worse, just having a very convincing conversation with your own echo, your own self-deception?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Validation.
It is. And the sources offer a critical test. It's brutally honest, really. It boils down to this. If your angel only tells you what you already know and offers things you already want to do, that is not your angel.
Oof, that's a sharp filter because the ego is the absolute master of telling us comforting lies, right? Making us feel validated.
Precisely. If the entity you contacted just pats you on the back, confirms all your existing beliefs, tells you how brilliant and special you are, and suggests paths you are already inclined to take, chances are extremely high. You've just reinforced your own ego structure. You haven't contacted the HGA.
So the real HGA, its job is to challenge you.
Fundamentally, its job is to challenge you, call you on your nonsense, your self-deceptions, your comfortable illusions, and crucially, it will lead you to places intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, sometimes even physically, that you would not otherwise choose to go. Because those places require radical, uncomfortable growth. True contact is disruptive, often severely disruptive.
Is there an example of that kind of disruption in the sources?
A perfect one, again from Jason Miller. He recounts that within just 6 months of establishing contact with his HGA, he felt strongly urged, compelled, really to abandon almost all the magical practices he'd been comfortable with for years.
Abandon his established path. What did he do instead?
He was guided towards a serious deep dive study of Tibetan Buddhism, something completely outside his previous framework. And this wasn't just reading a few books. It eventually led him to move, for a significant period, to Nepal to study directly with lineage holders. This was absolutely not a pre-existing goal or interest for him.
Wow. So the angel basically forced him way out of his intellectual and geographical comfort zone.
Exactly. That's the kind of radical rerouting that signals genuine HGA contact. So the takeaway is, if your life, your practices, your core beliefs remain more or less the same after your supposed KNC as they were before, if you're still just doing the same old banishing rituals and feeling smug, it's a pretty safe bet that whatever you contacted, it wasn't your true angel. The genuine article changes you. Utterly. Permanently. It aligns you with this cosmic current that might make very little sense to your rational mind or your human peers.
Okay, so beyond the life-altering guidance and challenges, what about practical magical effectiveness? Does contacting the HGA make your other spells work better?
According to practitioners like Frater Rufus Opus, absolutely. Once contact is established and stabilized, the HGA acts like a kind of spiritual overlay and enhanced processing system. It makes all forms of magic, from simple folk spells right up to high ceremonial workings, significantly more effective.
How does that work?
It seems to facilitate both what you could call ascension magic and materialization magic. In ascension magic, the HGA actively guides you up through the symbolic spheres of the cosmos, the planets, the Sephiroth, whatever model you use. It provides direct initiation and purification related to each sphere. For example, working consciously with the energies of Mars, guided by the HGA, helps to purify and balance the corresponding vice within the magician's psyche. Things like unholy daring, rashness, uncontrolled anger.
So by working through the spheres with the HGA, you integrate those energies properly.
You integrate them, you purify the corresponding parts of yourself. And then, because as above, so below, every initiation, every integration you achieve above in the spiritual realms, it inevitably results in a tangible, corresponding result below in the physical world.
So that's the materialization magic side.
Exactly. By truly integrating these cosmic forces through the HGA's guidance, you gain this deep, intuitive understanding gnosis of how those forces actually symbolize and manifest in the physical world. The HGA helps you process and direct these forces with much greater clarity and power. This leads to better control over manifestation, more effective spell work, often resulting in improved material circumstances. But importantly, this happens as a byproduct of the spiritual growth, not as the primary goal itself.
That makes sense. But crucially, this HGA experience, this KNC, it's not like flipping a switch, is it? You don't just get it and then you're done forever.
Absolutely not. It's not a one-and-done event. Life, circumstances, the sheer noise of the world, the persistence of the ego, they constantly pull your attention out of alignment. The connection needs maintenance.
So what did someone like Abraham von Worms recommend? He went through the whole ordeal. Did he just pack up his oratory afterwards?
Far from it. He strongly recommended maintaining a dedicated sacred space, the oratory, and making a point to formally meet with the HGA at least once a week, specifically on the Sabbath, Saturday. He essentially advised continuing the core practices for the rest of your life.
So the final months of the operation, that devotional practice becomes the lifelong practice.
Pretty much, yes. Abraham details the ongoing procedure. You still fast the day before, cleanse yourself physically and spiritually, enter the prepared oratory, light the lamp and incense, anoint the altar, wear the special robes, and offer devout prayers. The understanding is the angel will never truly leave you again once contacted, but the clarity and intensity of the connection must be actively maintained through this regular dedicated effort. It's about continually finding that humility, that inner silence, and also using the established connection with the angel to help communicate more effectively with other spirits and angels you might work with.
It's an ongoing relationship that needs nurturing.
The most important relationship in the magician's life, according to these traditions. But we have to talk about the next major step on this path.
Yeah.
The one that really tests the principle of non-attachment.
Ah, the crossing of the abyss.
The great, terrifying abyss, yes. Aleister Crowley stated quite clearly that the HGA, once contacted and integrated, will invariably lead the dedicated adept towards this next great spiritual barrier. Successfully crossing it is what leads to the exalted grade of Master of the Temple.
But there's a catch, isn't there? A very big catch.
A monumental catch. Crossing the abyss requires the Adeptus Exemptus, that's the high grade achieved just before this step, to be utterly stripped of all his attainments and of himself as well. And here's the kicker. Even of his holy guardian angel.
You have to give up the angel, after all that work, to attain its knowledge and conversation. That seems counterintuitive. Brutal, even.
It represents the ultimate test of non-attachment. The abyss is conceived as this great void, the region of ultimate nullity, chaos, where all sense of individual personality, all structure, completely dissolves. To cross it, the ego, the fist we talked about, must be absolutely annihilated. And since the HGA is, for the adept at that stage, the highest, most perfect manifestation of the personal self, the thumbs up, it too must be transcended, relinquished, abandoned.
Why? To merge with what?
To merge completely with the transcendent universal consciousness. With Nuit, the use thelemic terms, you have to let go of the highest personal attainment to achieve the universal.
It's like that analogy, the HGA is the boat that carried you across the vast ocean to the shore of the abyss. But you can't take the boat with you when you climb the mountain beyond the shore. You have to leave it behind.
That's a perfect analogy for it. It's the ultimate act of letting go. But the sources do offer some comfort. They confirm that this abandonment isn't necessarily permanent in a practical sense. When the Master of the Temple needs to operate on lower levels of consciousness again, interacting with the world, the angel's presence is instantly returned. The connection is restored. But the relationship is permanently transformed by having passed through that ultimate test of relinquishment.
So the fear of permanent loss is maybe unfounded, but the test itself is absolute.
The test is absolute. And ultimately, as E. Remus reminds us, the purpose of evoking the HGA isn't really about worship or gaining magical powers for their own sake. It's about transformation. It's about obtaining the information that is essential to the work of transformation.
The awakening, the enlightenment, that's almost a byproduct of getting the information needed to change.
Exactly. It's the byproduct of doing the work. Once that bond with the HGA is secured and maintained, the magician's life is forever changed. You still have free will, technically, but going against the angel's counsel, which is aligned with your true will, it becomes obviously painfully against your own best interest. You operate from a place of full responsibility, full awareness of your actions and their cosmic consequences.
Oh, you're no longer stumbling in the dark, acting out of ignorance or egoic desire.
Yeah.
You're operating from your true center. The struggle to get there sounds exhausting, but the shift, being reborn or awakened, that's the ultimate prize.
That's the prize. A life lived in conscious alignment with the cosmos. #tag outro. So we've covered a lot of ground today. We journeyed from those ancient PGM Falcon, right, steeped in sympathetic magic and the hermetic axioms of microcosm and macrocosm, showing that this core quest for the angel, for the perfect nature, has always been fundamentally about kindling that inner solar light. We traced it through the intense psychological purification demanded by Hellenic dualism, echoed in Sufi mysticism's yearning for the beloved, and we navigated the sometimes rough terrain of modern debates, trying to clearly distinguish the true celestial HGA from other helpful but different entities, like the supernatural assistant.
We definitely spent some time on that SA versus HGA distinction, which feels critical, and then the path itself, realizing you might need to throw out rigid timelines, embrace Parkinson's law in reverse, maybe.
Perhaps. And learning the absolute necessity of internal silence, finding ways to shut up and listen, even if it involves, well, excremeditation.
We won't forget that term anytime soon. And then confronting the reality that for some, KNC might not come through quiet prayer alone, but might demand a radical, ego-dissolving ordeal. A vision quest that tests the absolute limits of courage, faith, and sanity, ultimately leading to that profound, permanent shift in consciousness.
A shift that prepares the adept, not just for a more effective magical life, but potentially for that ultimate step Crowley outlined, the crossing of the abyss, the final relinquishment.
So if there's one single takeaway from all these diverse sources, what would you say it is?
I think the single greatest lesson is just how intensely personal this path is. Whether you choose the focused intensity of Liber Summit, or the comprehensive 18-month Abramelin Marathon, or forge your own path through a personalized vision quest, the specific ritual, the technique, seems secondary. What's primary is the sincerity, the worthiness earned through purification, and the radical, uncompromising commitment to self-transformation. And ultimately, the willingness to relinquish the very ego that seeks the prize.
That makes sense. The method is the container, but the commitment is the substance. And maybe the most profound insight threading through all of this is the promise that once you have truly met your holy guardian angel, achieved that K&C, you will never truly travel this path alone again. There's a companion, a guide.
A constant presence, yes.
However, and this is the final thought I want to leave our listeners with, if the HGA's will is truly aligned with the objective will of the source, the cosmos itself, and if your personal comfort, your plans, your ego's desires are utterly irrelevant to that ultimate cosmic will, then it really begs a deep question, doesn't it?
Which is?
To what extent does attaining the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel actually free you from your personal destiny? And to what extent does it irrevocably bind you to a cosmic destiny? One that might be far greater, yes, but also perhaps far more demanding and maybe even less personally comfortable than you could have ever possibly imagined before you started.
That is indeed something potent to contemplate. Food for thought as you proceed on your own path. We really encourage you, listening today, to explore these concepts we've discussed. Profound silence, radical self-honesty in your own life. Seek that place where the underlying hand is revealed and the clenched fist finally begins to dissolve.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.